The most convincing evidence that we live on after our bodies die is in the recordings of people living in the life after this life that are verified as the person by people on this side of life. We have recordings, thousands of them, today. In this video, you will hear the recordings of a man whose body had been dead for years talking on the phone, a recording of a well-known NASA scientist in spirit communicating through a radio device, recordings of people communicating on ordinary recording devices to their loved ones on this side of life, and the recording of a famous Shakespearean actress speaking 37 years after her body died. Hello, I'm Dr. R. Craig Hogan, President of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute and Seek Reality Online. What would you think if your phone rang and when you picked it up, the person speaking clearly to you had been dead for 20 years? That has happened to a number of people, including 4 people who received phone calls from Dr. Constantine Raiva, a Latvian writer, psychologist, and philosopher who had passed into spirit 20 years before the phone calls. During the phone calls, Raiva communicated eloquently, referring to the listener's personal experiences, used his distinctive Latvian accent, and engaged in a seamless exchange about the researcher's work in recording the voices of people in the afterlife. This is a recording of one of the researchers who received a phone call from Raiva, Sarah Estep. She introduces the phone calls and then plays the phone call she received.
These calls were made to 3 EVP experimenters in the United States. The first segment, lasting 40 seconds, came through my telephone at approximately 10:45 a.m. on January 27, 1994. My telephone rang normally. I was sitting at the desk in my office working. When I picked up the receiver, a clear male voice said, "This is Constantine Raiva." I quickly pushed the record button of my Sano tape recorder that is connected to my telephone and asked, "How are you, Dr. Raiva?" This explains his first remark as my tape recorder began recording. "I'm as fine as a dead one can be." It is important to note he heard my question and responded to it in an appropriate way, perhaps showing a dry sense of humor. After that, he went on to complete his message, calling me by name and again saying his name at the end. You will then hear me say, "Thank you so much." You will notice there is no dial sound as he ends his contact, which you normally hear under usual phone call conditions. Others who have received phone calls from the other side have also remarked on the absence of dial tones.
I'm as fine as a dead one can be. Dear Sarah, thank you very much for everything you did for the propagation of the voices. We tried and we succeeded in building this bridge to the States. You are one of the first who are contacted by this meaning. Thank you very much for all the work you did. We are very proud and honored that we could contact you. I must interrupt now. This was the first contact. This was Constantine Raiva speaking.
Thank you so much.
You can listen to Raiva's other phone conversations at afterlifeinstitute.org/calls. A second set of recordings of a man speaking from the afterlife happened in the 1970s. George Meek and medium Bill O'Neill built a device they called Spiritcom. It was a lot like a shortwave radio, but on the other end of the conversation were people now living in the afterlife. Using Spiritcom, the researchers on this side of life tuned into the afterlife and had lively conversations with someone living there. In the video recording you are about to view, medium Bill O'Neill speaks to Dr. George Jeffries Mueller in the afterlife. Dr. Mueller was a NASA scientist and physics professor who transitioned in 1967. To prove his identity, Dr. Mueller gave his social security number, the place where his death certificate could be found, and intimate details of his life and scholastic achievements. All were proven to be true. It was Dr. Mueller speaking, although his body had long been dead. He said he had been a NASA scientist and a college professor before his transition to the afterlife. In the recording that follows, you will hear the Spiricon device producing a buzzing noise through which Dr. Mueller spoke. Dr. Mueller asked O'Neill whether he had contacted people at NASA. Dr. Mueller had given him phone numbers. Dr. Mueller intended for these researchers to give O'Neill insights in how to fine-tune the Spiricon device. O'Neill stalls because he didn't make the phone calls. He knew the phone number was known only to people with government top-secret clearance, and he knew he could be in trouble if he had tried to explain that he got the number from a dead guy.
I said, could you wait a moment, sir?
Very well.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm just adjusting the frequencies.
No, I say. All right, very well. By the way, will you?
Yes, sir.
You all that telephone numbers I gave you?
No, sir.
Why not?
Well, Dr. Mueller, those are unlisted telephone numbers.
That's correct.
All right, now if oh boy, even though I give, when they answer and I give the code, even then, sir, wouldn't they wonder, maybe there's another code or something, and considering what they're involved in,
Don't worry about that.
yes, but I do, sir. I do worry about that, sir. That one fellow especially, sir, that, you said he has a Q clearance?
That's correct. Secret.
His secret, Q clearance. Supposing they found out it was me, okay? And they wanted to know how I got a hold of the unlisted telephone number. Now, who would believe where I got these unlisted? Oh boy.
You can view the full video of O'Neill communicating with Dr. Mueller at the website on the screen. A third area of recordings of people living in the afterlife is through instrumental transcommunication. Researchers are able to record the voices using standard audio recorders or a laptop. When the voices are played back, the people who knew the person in spirit confirm that the voices and messages are characteristic of their loved one in spirit. The foremost researcher doing this work today is Sonia Rinaldi in Brazil. Sherry Pearl in New York learned Sonia's procedure and is recording voices in the United States. Here are some examples of the recordings. While the audio recorder was running, the researchers asked questions or had the parents of a child in spirit ask questions. When they played back the recordings, they heard the responses clearly.
Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
Would you like to leave a message to your mother?
Mommy, I can talk.
Adam, it's Mom. I want to know our USP.
Danny, can you say I love you, Mom?
I'm sure you're doing great. We love you and miss you.
Daddy, no, love you. Night.
Alexandria, are you happy?
Hi, Tyler. I love you, baby.
The fourth area of recordings of people now living in the afterlife comes from direct voice mediums and physical mediums. These mediums are able to have people whose bodies have been dead for years speak aloud to people who knew them and are sitting in the room. The voices are as clear as though they had been in a body standing before a microphone. We now have thousands of these recordings. In this example, a famous Shakespearean actress who passed away in 1928 speaks in a Leslie Flint session in 1965.
There is no need to fear the crossing from your word to this. It is the great adventure. It is the great awakening into a greater world of loveliness and beauty and freedom of thought. Truly this is a spiritual world, but not as man has depicted it. Indeed, it is so different, and so tremendously alive, so vital, so tremendously, as it were, so far removed from man's conception of things, that it cannot be depicted or described. One can only feel it and know it and sense it. It is so vast and so beautiful. Do not fear that passing from your word to this. No one need fear, for this is a world of love and true brotherhood, and all who come will be shown the path and the way. There is no need for fear, for God truly is love, and this is a world of love in which all who dwell are seeking to uplift themselves from stage to stage in evolution to a greater sense of the reality of the power of the Holy Spirit. All is good if man will but seek it and find it. Man will progress from the depths to the heights. All is here for man to experience joy. It is truly the life of the Spirit, but it is the spiritual existence far removed from man's ideas and man's conception of things.
The voices the researchers are recording today demonstrate that the people communicating are alive and articulate, although their bodies and brains have died. The people in spirit have all the qualities they had when living on earth: their fluent voice, characteristic personality, memories of past events, and acknowledgement of current events. The people to whom the statements are addressed accept these as conversations with a valid person they knew when they were in this life, because they recognize the person's spirit voice and quality, personality, references to current events, and reminiscences of past events in people's lives. These individuals who speak in the recordings did not die when their bodies died. The evidence from these communications proves you will come to the end of this life, but you will never die.